What about the sleeping position? So the bed and how you sleep and things like, you sleep in your front, rolled up, on your back. What is there? Is it anything goes?
This is a massive subject. So 75% of us sleep on our side, be it left or right. 10% of us sleep on our backs, and the remaining 10%-ish sleep on our fronts. Now, as a physiotherapist, I discourage people from sleeping on their fronts because many people end up getting neck pain or low back pain as they get older. So I'm not a big fan of front sleeping, although with your mattress and with your pillows, you can set it up so that you can sleep on your front. The large percent of people sleep on their side. So what's critical and important, apart from the bed, which we'll come on to discussing, I'm sure, is how you set your pillows up, just to make sure that your head is supported in the midline position. So I'm just going to show you a visual here, which is that the pillow needs to fill the gap between your shoulder and your neck. So you're not too crinked down to one side or crinked over to the other side. So for someone who is petite like yourself, you might need less pillows, whereas for someone, no offence, it's just you've got a very beautiful slim neck. You're not broad, but you're slightly broader. So you might need a few more pillows than yourself to get into the bed night best position. But the whole point is to keep your head and neck in the midline when you're sleeping on your side. And when it comes to sleeping on your back, you may well choose to have a very thin pillow because you don't want to be too bent forwards or too bent back. So you may wish to have a very thin pillow that just supports you in the midline position with a little pillow under your knees to take the slack off the low back as well.
Oh, that's interesting. I love a low pillow. My husband has about 5.
How interesting. Yeah. I sleep on my front, normally with my forehead on the pillow, with my head in the mattress and my 2 arms up like this.
So one thing you can do if you are a front sleeper is put a pillow underneath your chest.
Right.
And that means that your neck won't be so rotated. And we tend to discourage people that sleep on their front from actually having a pillow at their head end.
Right.
Because you want to avoid the rotation. Because can you imagine if you spent the day for 6 to 8 hours with your head turned to the one side? You want to keep your head in the midline position, ideally. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for neck problems later on in life, particularly as you get stiff. So I'm a big fan of encouraging people to either sleep on their side or learn to sleep on your back, because when you're older and you have to have surgery, you are always told, apart from the odd surgery, to lie on your back. So sleeping on your back is a bit more symmetrical, but as I said, most people tend to sleep on their side. And even putting a pillow between your knees just to prevent any twisting or turning or torsion can help minimise it. But underlying sleeping position is really important. But the bed and the pillows is an area that we really have to discuss.
Your wardrobe falling apart or not being comfortable or not being, very functional is just an irritating issue. Whereas if your bed isn't good, then that's going to cause a whole host of problems, surely.
Absolutely, I'm sure from a
so mattresses.
The mattress is the most important thing. But I think that's really your area, isn't it?
So there's a few points here. The bigger, the better. You want as big a bed as possible, particularly if you're sharing a bed. And I know that might occupy too much of the beautiful room space, but getting
you're ruining my design.
Exactly, we're having a fight over here.
I think really it doesn't matter. Really, it's what the client likes. There's no rules about what size bed.
The bigger the better, because there's less disruption from the other party. And I'm just a fan of the bigger the better, which is my first point. My second point that's really important is buying a bed is a bit like choosing a marriage between comfort and support. And it does vary from person to person. You may prefer a firmer bed, you may prefer a less firm bed, but finding the ultimate blend of comforts and support is critical. But 2 separate people might have different preferences, so they may need, within the same bed, 2 separate mattresses or 2 smaller beds that are pushed together, because each person has got a different requirement depending on their personal preference, their sleeping position, and just how they like to sleep. So, and for me, the other point is budget. I always look at beds as beds last for somewhere in the region of 8 to 10 years, but by 8 years, a bed would have deteriorated by 75%. And buying a new bed can improve the quality and quantity of your sleep. It can improve the length of your sleep by around about 42 to 45 minutes, and it can really improve your sleep. So spending money and stretching on a bed is really worthwhile. If you think about your average cost of a mattress, it depends on what you're looking at. Look at spending 50p for 365 days a year over 8 years, that's £1,500.
When you put it like that.
So when you break it, and that's a mid-range price. So I think it's really worth breaking it down and looking at the day in, day out package and really stretching and really investing in a really decent bed. And as we've discussed, you only need to buy a bed once every 8 to 10 years, but definitely contemplate buying a new bed because it can make a huge difference to how you feel, how you look, all facets of your life.
Absolutely, sleep's so important, isn't it? And you do spend up to 8 hours a day in there, don't you? So you wouldn't spend it. It's obviously worth the money.
I find it amazing. People spend so much money on their sofas.
Yeah.
But they're happy to spend a lot less money on their beds.
beds.
I can
They spend
never
a lot
get
more
my head
time on
around
it. That's very interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we spend a third of our lives asleep,
Yeah.
and what % of time do we spend sitting on our sofa? Less than a third.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Yet we're still not thinking about investing in a decent bed.